The serve is the most important shot in tennis, so this is the most important tennis video you're ever going to watch because it reveals step by step how to master your serve grip, motion, and toss for consistent, powerful serves. Hey, my name is Ian, and since 2009, I've uploaded over 2,000 free tennis videos that have helped more than 1 million tennis players improve. Let's dive right in. To deliver consistent power, speed, and spin with your serve, we need a long, flowing, circular service motion. Watch the tip of Roger's racket here as he moves through this motion, and watch how it traces a circle, comes around back behind him, drops down low, and then comes back up smoothly towards the point of contact. This circular path gives him a long runway to be able to build speed, build acceleration, and use that acceleration to hit the ball either harder or with more spin. And the longer and smoother it is, the easier it is to do that. Here's Serena from the opposite angle so that you can get a sense for that circle. Same idea, long, smooth, circular. Again, trace the tip of her racket with your eyes and you're going to see a long, smooth, gradual circle. And that circle is used to build acceleration, to build speed throughout the motion. And then all of it is delivered and focused right around the point of contact as it releases and snaps through. I'm going to tell you exactly how that snap occurs and how it doesn't occur in just a second. First, here's the type of motion we're looking to avoid. Not to make fun of this player at all, I just worked with this student. This is super typical. This is very normal. Watch the tip of her racket, how her racket goes back and then forth. It's a straight line. It's linear. This is much shorter of a motion, much shorter of a runway, and it uses much smaller muscle groups and parts of the body, so it's very, very difficult. It takes a lot of work to get very little speed and acceleration out of this type of motion. The way we create that long, smooth, circular path is by not facing the racket strings towards the ball right away. Any elite player starts with their racket face initially facing to the right. This is the hitting surface that Novak is going to use to hit the ball. Then, as he circles through the back part of his motion, aka like the back scratch, and then starts going up towards contact, now his strings are facing to the left. And then right before contact, he's going to release that stretch that he has with his arm and his shoulder, and then the racket unwinds and faces forwards towards the box. Now watch Serena. Look at how in her trophy pose, her strings, hitting surface is facing out to the right, and then as she drops and rotates her body and starts swinging up towards contact, now her strings are facing towards the left, and then right before contact, she's going to unwind her racket and face her strings forwards towards the box. That's what creates this long, smooth, circular loop with the racket. Now let's look at my student again. The first thing she does is face her strings upwards. And that makes sense in a way because we want the strings to be facing towards the box as we hit the ball so the ball goes in the service box. But the problem is, as you play more and more tennis and you want to hit a better and better serve, as long as you stick with that back and forth motion, you're never going to be able to generate significant amounts of speed and therefore power or spin. If this video has already been helpful, it would really mean a lot if you would click the like button. Thank you so much for supporting my videos. The first thing we have to address if you want a proper service motion is to get the right grip. So to find the right grip, first you want to put your racket on edge, and then we're going to number the different sides or bevels of the handle, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, going around in clockwise fashion if you're right-handed. The best grip for serving, because it helps to enable that circular path, is having your big knuckle of your index finger right here on bevel number 2 of the racket. Number 1 is all the way up on the top, and then the next one over to the right, if you're a right-handed player, is number 2. And you want the big knuckle of your index finger on that second bevel, and make sure that your hand is spread across the grip or across the handle so that it's kind of fanned out a little bit. It's possible to hit a proper serve with an Eastern forehand grip, which has your big knuckle on the flat bevel on the side of your grip, bevel number 3. But once you start getting around towards bevel 4 and bevel 5, which is semi-Western and full Western forehand, those grips are basically custom made for the linear straight kind of motion that we saw from my student a second ago. Now let's focus on how to move the body correctly, and then we'll start putting the racket back in our hand. But first, we just need to get a sense of how to move our body, how to move our arm and hand to stretch and release our shoulder to create that circular path. So the first drill I recommend you do is start off facing to the side. Just turn 90 degrees to the baseline, have your chest facing sideways, and put your arm out at a neutral angle. So have your upper arm be just level with your shoulders, create a 90-degree bend with your elbow, and then just face your hand in a neutral position forwards. And practice turning your body forwards and turning your hand inwards to face towards your ear. This is kind of the core movement that starts to create that circle back behind us. After you've turned forwards and turned your hand inwards and laid your shoulder back, then it's time to unwind and face our hand forwards and eventually out to the side, aka pronate or release. But before we can pronate, we have to turn our hand and our shoulder inward, and that's what creates the right to left circular path down back behind us, below, down to our waist, and then up towards the ball again, is this external rotation of the arm and the hand, and then followed by an internal rotation of the arm and the hand. Here's my student with that pushing motion initially, practicing that. It's just starting to get the feel for what it's like to face her hand to the right, turn forwards and face her hand to the left, and then eventually getting a feel for what it's like to unwind her arm and her hand and face it forwards towards the box so that the ball actually goes in that direction. The second drill you're going to want to do is put the racket in your hand now with that continental grip, and now get comfortable moving your body through that same motion with the racket in your hand. So notice as I set up, my racket is now facing along the baseline to the right, and then as my body turns forwards, I'm pivoting, turning my hand to face in towards my ear. That's what starts that circular motion, brings the racket down into the racket drop, and then as I continue facing forwards, I'm going to unwind my arm and my shoulder and face my racket towards the box. Here's my student practicing her new motion with her racket. You'll see that now she's tracing a circle with the tip of her racket. Instead of going in a line back and forth, now her racket starts off facing to the right. And by the way, there's a lot of refining to do here. There's a lot of optimizing. We're just getting her on the path. And so there's still plenty of things we can work on, but in one session together, look at how now her racket is starting off by facing mostly to the right. And now she's tracing a circle and her racket tip is dropping, and now her strings are facing to the left. And then on the way up, as she rotates, she turns her hand and then her racket starts to face forwards. We're getting directionally correct, starting to trace a circle. She's not in a continental grip, but she's in Eastern forehand grip, which is a big improvement over the semi-Western that she had before. And so we're moving things in the right direction. Having a smooth, effective serve is going to help you win more matches, but you need good tactics and strategy as well, which is why I set up tennissecret.com, where you'll learn how to make half as many errors, which is how most tennis points end, in your very next match. It's totally free. Go check it out right now at tennissecret.com. The next phase of training is to start to coordinate the motion, the new motion, with a ball, which is going to be tricky because her prior motion, and many of you out there, if you're making this transition, your prior motion is probably very linear, straight back and forth. And if your new motion is circular and longer, it takes more time. So initially, your old way of tossing, your old timing with your toss, your old toss location, is probably not going to work because we need more room, we need more time to be able to actually make our way through that new motion. So what I had her do is do a shadow swing and practice the new motion, and then I did a practice toss for her out to the side so that she could practice going through her new circular motion and try to time it with the rising and falling of my practice toss out to the side. Because if your brain is thinking, oh, it's time to serve, it's time to hit the ball, you're probably just going to go right back to your old straight line, back and forth kind of hinge motion, and you're going to lose the circle, you're going to lose the smoothness and the runway. So do some fake tosses or some practice tosses at first before you try to hit the ball to get the feel for what it's like to toss and do this new circular motion correctly. The final stage is to actually put your new motion into action with an actual toss and actually practice hitting the ball, finding the right rhythm, the right timing, the right toss location so that you can trace that full circle and actually meet the ball in the right place. By following those drills, watch how, just in one session together, one afternoon together, watch how my student's old motion was back and forth. And look at how she would finish on the same side of her body because she was just whipping her arm and hinging in a straight line back and forth as hard as possible, compared to her new motion just a couple hours later with the racket dropping. Look at how low the tip of her racket is getting. Now her strings are facing to the left instead of facing upwards the entire time. And now she's tracing a circle and she has a much longer runway. Can we still improve this? Absolutely. But now she's on the right path, she's on the right track. She has the ability now to generate much more speed and much more spin, and she's on her way to being able to develop an athletic serve. Now that we have the right grip and we have the correct swing motion, we need to talk about the toss, because if our toss is all over the place, if it's erratic, then we're never going to get good quality serve results. So there's two core elements that are most important about the toss. Element number one is that we have a long runway, and element number two is that we only have one lever lifting the ball. So let's talk about the length first. Look at how the back of Roger's hand is starting up against his leg. And from that position, he's going to make a long swooping motion with his arm. And it's not so much that he's throwing the ball. Like, toss is actually kind of a bad word. What we're really doing here is smoothly bringing our arm all the way up into our trophy position and then just letting the ball go. Watch how he just lets the ball go, and it almost looks like it's kind of like weightless, and it just kind of floats out of his hand. And that's because his arm is still moving and he has this long path, just like the circular motion we're developing with our racket arm. We want to develop a long, smooth runway so that we can release the ball in the same way each and every time. So aside from the length, it's critical to point out that his arm, his elbow, his hand, his fingers are all neutral. You could hinge at the fingers and kind of flip the ball up in the air. You could hinge at the wrist and flick the ball up in the air. You could hinge at the elbow and flip the ball up in the air. Instead, Roger is just moving one lever along a long path, and that allows him to make this very, very smooth and repeatable. Let's go back to Serena now, another one of the best servers of all time. Look at how her hand is very close to the front of her leg, and then she's going to lift in one piece, continue her arm moving. Just like Roger, she's just going to let her fingers open. And also, just like Roger, you'll notice that elite players tend to let go of the ball right about eye height. And then from there, it just floats out of her fingers because her left arm continues to move upwards into her trophy pose. You'll notice that as she lets go of the ball, her elbow, her wrist, her hand, her fingers are all in a neutral position. And so she's just moving in a long, smooth runway, a long path, one single lever moving the ball up into the air, and then just letting it go. So where should you toss the ball? Like, where do you physically want the ball to be? The best location, if you're a right-handed player, is a little bit to the right of your body and a little bit in front of the baseline, so that there's room for your body to unwind and turn, and also room to be able to extend and reach without getting too jammed up. So this is my favorite drill to work on that. I've got a basket here just inside the baseline and a little bit to the right of my stance. And I'm practicing keeping my arm in one piece and just using the lever of my shoulder to lift and raise the ball up into the air. And my goal here is to place the ball in that spot in space where it would be easy for me to turn forwards and reach up and extend and make contact in a high athletic position. And then I'm just letting it drop for the purposes of this drill to see how accurate I am. So I'm using the basket as a target and immediate feedback. So if I toss a ball that lands here, then I would make a little bit of an adjustment with where I'm letting go of the ball, continue to raise with one big long lever, but you might want to release the ball in a little bit different place so that it goes someplace a little bit different. And so depending on where the ball lands, you can fine tune, adjust your toss, and get more and more and more precise and accurate. Now you know step by step how to develop a fundamentally sound tennis serve. If this video has been helpful, do me a favor and click the like button. And on the screen now, you'll see my other favorite video on the serve, which is all about how to develop a kick serve, which is one of the most useful and frankly fun and exciting types of serves that you can hit in tennis. Check it out right now so you can learn how to hit a big kick.